teachers, we bring in coaches, perhaps, to bring those skills of our teachers up so that we can make that investment so that those teachers can be of greater service to our students in the classroom. And if we pull those levers and we still don't see the progress that we'd hope to see, we might have to pull in, maybe do some objective, have third-party analysis to see what is it that we're looking at that should be more clear to us that isn't showing up in the data somehow. Real-time assessments, and this is one place where AI can be helpful. Getting real-time assessments from students might help the teachers improve their ability to service those students in the classroom. And so if we pull levers like that, I think we can make progress. And if we can't make progress, maybe we can have a better perspective on what opportunities we should look to instead.
Thank you
for the question, Dr. Brown.
Thank you. Trustee Washington, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. Good morning, Ms. Johnson. Thank you for being here. I do want to double click on student success and ask if you can describe a program or project that you have developed to improve student success and what the results have been. I know you mentioned implementing performance funding. If you want to go a little deeper on that, alternatively, you can provide an example of a program or project you've developed at your current organization and what the results have been.
If it's okay, because I am in a corporate role, I'll answer the question from a different perspective in this context. And this is one of the things I actually love about the role that I'm in right now, is that for many of us, we show up at jobs and our jobs have meaning and purpose. But for me, I've always had a passion for education and for making sure that every student has an opportunity for success. And so I remember when I was on the State Board of Ed, Dr. Greco came and presented to us, and he talked about the fact that we were losing a lot of learning opportunity in the evenings because we had students in classrooms that didn't have access to electronic devices and they didn't have access to the internet. So they could not learn after they left the school each day. And so in his assessment, the greatest opportunity we had to improve achievement outcomes in our state was to make sure that students had access to broadband and digital devices in order to extend the learning day. So bring that forward to where I am right now. We are in an era where we looked at the state of Florida, and if you had looked at the state of Florida 4 years ago, you would have said the state of Florida doesn't have a problem with broadband access. 93% of the people who live in the state have access to broadband. What the truth was, if you were one of the 7% of the people who didn't have access to broadband, then you were penalized in many ways because the expectation was that you had access to learning content that other people had, that you had access to job tools and skills that other people had, when in fact you didn't. And so the impact of broadband availability and digital literacy on our education process is something that I am very excited that our country has finally understood and embraced. And we've taken action in order to make sure that we're bringing broadband access to every student and teaching them digital skills to help better expand their opportunities and potential to learn.
Trustee Lawson, you're recognized. Trustee Lawson, you're recognized. Okay. At this time, I will ask a question. So thank you for your presentation, Ms. Johnson. You mentioned several areas around vision that you see for the university. And I'd like to know specifically as it relates to our aspiration that you talked about of getting to R1. Tell us about your plans in order to help the university to get there.
I think there are three things that I'd like to see us focus on, many of which we're already focusing on. The first is to increase the existing capacity for research. And even though it's at an R2 status, the more research we do, the more partners we find, the better we position ourselves. There are two criteria, as I understand it from my research, that determine whether you will receive R1 status, and that is the amount of spending you have on research and the amount of PhDs that you produce. I think that the second thing I would love to see us take advantage of is the all but dissertation group. If we could spend some time going back and pulling those all but dissertation PhDs back into the campus and getting them across the finish line for their PhD, they might help us boost that PhD required number. The third thing that I'd like to see us do as it relates to accelerating our path to R1 designation is spend more focus on the biomedical field. There's hundreds of millions of dollars sitting at the Department of Health right now that could be accessed for biomedical, biohealth related research. I would love to make sure that we are taking advantage of that funding to bring additional research opportunities to our instructors, who, by the way, we do need to make sure we're creating the capacity for our faculty to have time to do the research. I know that when we look at some of our cohort universities in the state university system, they may not have as large a class load, so their capacity for research may be greater than our professors here and faculty here might realize. I would like to make sure that our faculty has the capacity that they need in order to do meaningful research and in order to help us accelerate that track to R1 status.
Thank you. Trustee Lawson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper, for coming back to me. Well, good morning and welcome. Quick question around leadership team. You know, the institutions across the SUS have really become large businesses, with Florida A&M amassing a budget, a little over $400 million. If you could, Ms. Johnson, talk to me about your philosophy on building a strong leadership team, and then secondarily, what's your philosophy on holding that team accountable for the results that they need to deliver?
Excellent. Thank you for that question, Trustee Lawson. The truth is that as much as I've talked about how much I've gotten done, I haven't gotten all of that done. No leader accomplishes anything without a team. And so it's extremely important that we have a very strong team, that our team feels valued, that we feel like we have the right people on the right bus and in the right seats. So as we think about my approach to leadership, it's making sure that the team knows that I don't see myself as the boss. I'm a collaborator. I have an accountability to the team. My accountability to the team is to make sure that we have the resources we need to be effective, that if there are hurdles in our way, that I am moving them so that we can be effective. Because at the end of the day, the team, the broader team, especially the senior leadership team, they're the ones that have to be counted on to get the work done every day. As the leader, I am championing resources. I'm moving mountains if they get in your way. I'm kicking little dust clouds out of your way if that's what's bothering you every day when you're trying to get things done. I'm here to collaborate. I'm not going to be the best academician at this point in my career. We've got an amazing provost, I've heard. I would love to collaborate her to see where our exchange of ideas and thoughts helps. I always say iron sharpens iron. So challenging thoughts and exchanging our ideas to see where we can take a good idea and make it better, where we can take a great plan and accelerate it to deliver it faster, where she can assign me goals and say, hey, my big, hairy, audacious objective would be for us to launch an international school of economics. And I say, let's go do it. That is my leadership philosophy. We're here to challenge each other, to bring the best, not to set bars, but to make the skies the limit, to set an example for each other of what excellence should look like, and to live up to it every day, and to hold each other accountable for delivering for our students, because we have to make sure that at the end of the day, no matter what gets done, no matter how many papers are written, no matter how many books are written, no matter how many awards our faculty wins or grant research we get done, if our students aren't seeing the impact of that success, then we failed. So that's my approach to leadership. I like to be challenged. I like to challenge my team, but I'm collaborative, supportive, and I see my responsibility to them is making sure they have the resources they need to be productive.
Thank you. Trustee Reed, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Chair Harper, and good morning. A question from my end is, can you elaborate a little bit more on your experience managing in higher education institutions, particularly in roles that require oversight of academic programs, faculty, and student affairs? And if you can't give any specific examples of that, can you give some insights into how you would make the transition, understanding that you're coming from more of a corporate environment into an academic environment?
Thank you for the question. You're right. I have not had to directly manage that experience. And so at the start, one of the things that I would do in order to make sure I'm as effective as possible is listen. I would love to hear how things are working today, and from the people who are leading those programs and services, and from the students who are the customers of those programs and services, what their thoughts are on how effective that effort has been and where they see opportunity for additional excellence in our delivery of services for them. You know, I would love to hear from students whether the campus life is exciting, whether campus experience is giving them the energy they thought they were going to get by making the investment to come to campus instead of staying at home or in going to one of our state colleges and driving back and forth. They've made an investment to leave their homes, to come here, to be on campus, to have the experience of being on our university's campus, and to be able to engage. And so I want to understand from students what that experience is like and whether we're meeting their needs, exceeding their needs, and if not, where we can exceed. The one thing I will say is, though I've not managed any of those areas with direct oversight, in our role in the State Board of Education, we did have to manage our state colleges. And one of the challenges our state colleges suffered is the same challenge that we face even on a university campus, and that is, how do we ensure student success? And student success is impacted by a myriad of things, and how they feel when they're on campus and when they're in that classroom is probably one of the biggest factors. So we did a lot of things to make sure that we were identifying based on data-driven feedback from students, just as you did, and that Dr. Brown shared with us earlier, some data-driven research he'd gotten from stakeholders. We took data-driven research to identify where we could invest differently in our state colleges to make sure that they were able to implement programs that ensured better excellence and better success for our students. So I'm looking forward to digging in and to hearing from students and our constituents and our community members how campus life can be, I mean, again, they could tell me it's incredible and it's perfect, but I'd love to see what that next era of evolution of excellence for campus life might look like.
Thank you. I see a couple hands from trustees who have already asked a question. Before I call on those trustees, I want to afford the opportunity for trustees Gainey, Perry, White, or Gibbons to ask the question should you choose. Trustee Gibbons, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, I yield my question in time to Trustee Brown.
Okay.
Should I go now, Trustee Harper?
I will call. I'm looking to see if anyone else has a question. All right, now we will entertain repeat questions. Trustee Brown, you're recognized.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Johnson, the next question is once again on behalf of the faculty and staff that were surveyed, and the title of the question is, who are our peers? Each state Department of Education submits salary data to the National Education Association for their higher education salary report. In that report for the 10 doctoral programs in FAMU, FAMU is ranked last in salary for assistant professors, last in salary for associate professors, and 7th out of 10 for full professors. The university recently completed a compensation study. However, faculty and staff were disappointed that the body of faculty and staff did not have input in the study. The study did not have schools with comparable professional programs, and that study excluded the majority of the SUS schools that we are compared to in every metric. Additionally, FAMU DRS was excluded from the compensation study and still make less than their county peers, as they were just raised to the 2020 state mandated salary of $47,500 in the past 2 months. If selected as president, what is your vision for benchmarking faculty and staff salaries to stay competitive with other SUS peers for the university and for county and lab school peers across the state?
Dr. Brown, your question is, of course, one of great weight, because I know that our faculty and staff, most of them come here because of their passion for education. And they come here with a heart centered in delivering excellence in advancing our students' educational needs, because they know the transformative power of education. So that we know that's why they're here, is to impact our students. But we also know that they deserve to be compensated in a way that reflects their value to the university and their value to the process. And so I would like to go through the compensation survey or study with you and with your counterparts to better understand where you might see gaps, where you might see that things that looked like they were aligned were maybe not aligned because the foundational assumptions were not accurate. And that's what happens. Sometimes if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. So you want to be at the table when people are defining assessments that will yield an outcome that ultimately you'll have to be accountable for. And so our faculty, there are diamonds. They're the ones rowing the big oar in the boat with us here in delivering on our goals for our students, our family, and the state. So I would love to work with the faculty to see where we believe the outcome did not align with the real inputs, and share that data and make tweaks where necessary in order to get to the right point. Because if we can't attract world-class faculty, if we can't retain world-class faculty, we're actually never going to be able to meet our goals of preeminence. We're not going to be able to advance our R1 status, and we're not going to be able to grow our student base, because at the end of the day, most of us can go back to college and remember a professor that impacted us, somebody excellent, somebody amazing, who will forever have shaped how we see the world. And our faculty are the ones making those impressions. And so I would love an opportunity to work with the faculty to make sure that we bring alignment where it was missing.
Thank you.
Trustee Washington, you're recognized.
Ms. Johnson, you described some of the challenges higher education is facing regarding funding, and we're a public university and pretty heavily dependent upon securing state funding. Can you describe some of your experience in securing funding from external sources, specifically legislative appropriations, but also could be private or corporate fundraising?
Yeah. The wonderful thing about the effort to secure funding is that we often don't even understand where the money is. But if you start to define the need, people can find the funds. So one example is going back to the rural broadband expansion effort that I discussed earlier. When I spoke to state leaders, they didn't believe we had a problem. And when we actually went and got the data and brought the data back and said, well, here's how it's impacting students in classrooms. Here's how it's impacting businesses and economic growth. It was not an easy process. You've got to plan a strategy that may require 2 or 3 years, but you've got to build out the plan, define where you want to go, describe what the impediments are in the way to get you there, and then tackle each of them. So in that effort, funding was just one fundamental problem, funding for actually supporting the rural broadband infrastructure. We also had some policy issues that had to be addressed with regard to infrastructure access and right of way. So I say all these things, Trustee Washington, to say that the first goal is to help educate people about the problem. Once you educate people about the problem, you will find that you can build a champion. You can identify counterparts who have the same interests, who are willing to be a part of the team and advancing the same goal. And then collectively, we can work to find solutions that get us ultimately to the funding outcomes that we need. And so I found in the legislative process, engaging legislators before you have a problem, so they understand your business, they understand your community, they understand the challenges that you see every day, not just when you have an existential problem that you're bringing them to solve right now. Bring them to the campus, help them understand what research looks like at FAMU, help them understand what research looks like in the context of some of our most, advanced labs. Let them see what we're doing and let them see the value it brings every day, not just when we have a problem and we need to go get funding to support it. So then when we come to them and we work with the legislature and other stakeholders to solve issues, we've already gotten them probably 40% of the path there.
Okay, I'm going to ask the next question, then I'll recognize you. So, Ms. Johnson, what are some of the headwinds that Florida A&M University faces, and how would you address and overcome those headwinds?
We do face headwinds, so I don't want to sound Pollyanna-ish, but as the #1 HBCU and at the value proposition that FAMU has, we're in the catbird seat. So the things that we need to try to navigate going forward are really those things that are going to help us accelerate our path to preeminence. And so the challenges we face are focusing, in my mind, mostly on accelerating that path to R1 status. I think that's going to help us attract more students. It's going to help us raise the brand and raise the brand, not just from a national perspective, from an international perspective, and move us up in the rankings. The other challenge that we face is a challenge that many universities are facing, and it's regarding some of the declining enrollments. That's just an ecosystem trend, but I do feel like we've got great capacity because here at FAMU, as noted, our acceptance rate shows that we've got a lot of students who have an interest in FAMU. So our challenge would be in finding ways to make sure those students who have an interest in FAMU have an opportunity to make FAMU their home. And some of the ways we could do that is partnering more closely with our high schools that are in areas where we know we're likely to students are historically more inclined to be interested in coming to FAMU, to start to reach out through our alumni network. And our alumni are really the best ambassadors for this university. The FAMU alumni, again, their love and passion for the programs and for the school is infectious. To take our alumni and extend that passion and that reach and have them increase their actual recruiting for us, and they're partnering with us with our local high schools to identify talent and to take talent that might be on the edge of being ready, like some of our TRIO programs do, and make sure that we're investing in those programs that ultimately produce students that are eligible to attend and interested in attending FAMU. So that would help us navigate the concerns about enrollment. And every university, I think, is going to have to tighten its belt. I don't think it's unique to universities. I think our local governments are looking at opportunities to tighten. So I don't see a path where we're spending less at FAMU. I see a path where we're spending more. It's an exercise in addition in my mind, not subtraction. But the challenge for us is making sure that the things we're asking to be added are the things that align with the SUS 30, so that we know that investment interest is going to align with where the dollars are.
Thank you. Trustee Bryant, you're recognized.
Sorry. Can you talk more about what you understand to be required for a university to reach R1 status? And because you mentioned that you wanted our university to be more PhD granting, what other factors do you understand as leading to that distinction?
My understanding is it's primarily research driven, that there are two, I would say, leading factors. The first is the amount of money spent on research, which is $50 million, I think is the trigger number. That $50 million, I think FAMU's there per capita. So I think that won't be our biggest challenge. I think our biggest challenge really is the number of PhDs we produce. And that's why looking at opportunities to get these all but dissertation students completed, looking at ways, when you look at our PharmD program, the PharmD program, those students actually do everything that the doctoral programs require under the R1 designation. They even do a dissertation. So there may be an advocacy opportunity for us to advocate to have PharmDs included in the analysis or the requirements that get you to eligibility for R1 status.
Thank you. Thank you. Trustee Lawson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. I think for all of us that, have been around a little while and worked with a couple presidents, their vision for where they want the institution to go becomes really important, and it's parlayed in the strategic plan and the work plan and in other initiatives. Ms. Johnston, could you share with us at a high level just your vision for the future of this institution?
Certainly. Other than the obvious, which is preeminence, I see FAMU, my vision for FAMU is really to make this university a metropolis of energy that is driven from academic excellence and built on a legacy of a rich tradition of the leaders that came before us. I would love this campus to be a campus where industry thrives. I love that we're caring for our students. I'd love to find out from our students whether or not we have the right number of facilities for gathering, and whether or not the student centers are giving you the opportunities that you need to exchange thought, to enjoy each other's company, and to grow and flourish. But I'd also love to see like a FAMU entrepreneurial hub on campus, where it's bringing energy, it's bringing innovation, it's bringing experiential learning opportunities to our campus. I would love to see more research being driven out of FAMU and commercialized. I would, we've got a great opportunity with our pharmacy college. We've got a great opportunity with our School of Business and all of the famous leaders who've given us a path forward there in terms of ideas and excellence. I would love to see some focus on the concern about our agriculture and whether or not our food safety and scarcity concerns can be managed with new technology and ideas. I think we're well positioned to be that hub for excellence in innovation and a world-renowned center for driving innovative thought, in medicine, in business, in architecture, in engineering, and across the spectrum.
Thank you. Trustee Brown, you're recognized.
Hello again. This question is titled Protection from Harm and Reasonable Timing. Surveyed faculty and staff were asked if a supervisor is under investigation for alleged wrongdoing towards an employee, the employee who filed the complaint should remain under the supervisor's authority during the time of investigation. The majority of faculty and staff disagreed, followed by strongly disagreed. Additionally, faculty and staff would like accountability for supervisors who've done wrong and been proven to have done wrong, rather than allowing those persons to stay in administrative positions. Unfortunately, some investigations at FAMU concerning priorities for faculty and staff have taken more than 900 days. This is a concerning reality for employees that remains unresolved after voicing the concern consistently. As president, what are reasonable implementations that you could add to improve this concern, provide accountability for timely investigations?
You ended with where I would start, and that is just focusing on accountability, making sure that we have a clear perspective on who ultimately is accountable for the outcomes and the potential risk associated with managing a process that could leave our employees exposed. I believe that the president is ultimately accountable, but there would be, shared responsibility somewhere in that context. And so the shared governance model, of course, always follows with a little shared accountability. And so I don't understand enough about the specifics of each of those scenarios, but I do think that working with the general counsel, looking at best in class business models, we have 11 counterparts who we can share process thoughts with and look at what's best in class and make a choice that's right for FAMU and make recommendations driven from what other similarly situated institutions have done that yield the outcomes we would like to see compared in bringing those solutions into this environment to see what works for FAMU.
Thank you.
Trustee White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. I have a two-pronged question. My first question, as the chair of the Finance and Accounting Audit Committee, we've recently got some information back from the Board of Governors regarding some of our, I would say, internal controls. We have historically had some issues at FAMU, even going back to when I was in school, going back to when my mother was in school, and when I was in school, especially around financial aid, and financial aid not getting to students on time. What would you do to, for one, break that cycle, to be able to ensure that students are receiving their financial aid in a timely manner? And for two, as you understand, being on the State Board of Education, the process for raising money and getting the buy-in of the legislature to be able to get resources to Florida A&M University, what would be your plan to ensure that FAMU is not only receiving the funds that we have gotten, over this last few years, but how could we 3x that amount while also being able to grow some of our flagship programs, such as the PharmD program, the law school, which has historically had some issues with our passing rates, and how would you be able to really express to the legislature and to our stakeholders the importance of these programs while also getting funding while we are having issues? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Trustee White. With regard to the first question, I do think that we have an opportunity as we look to the future. We know we're a knowledge-based society. We have many tools now that maybe we didn't have 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So I am not certain what the infrastructure looks like here in terms of the student services supported systems. But I do think doing a management assessment that helps us review some of those processes to better understand where we can uplift the level of the quality of service we're offering our students is essential. I think we all have heard those horror stories about friends whose financial aid didn't come through on time, and it potentially impacted their study track while they were in school. And those are, I think, avoidable scenarios. I know we even had a situation where we had housing that was not in sync with what students' expectations were, and we had some students displaced. To me, those are process and infrastructure issues. So the first thing I would do is a management assessment. I want to understand, am I using the right tools? Do I have the right infrastructure? Are there shared services that I could utilize and leverage shared services that are available to the other 11 SUS partners to accelerate our ability to upgrade the quality and care that we're able to give our students with regard to the administrative services that are necessary to support their studies here. And as it relates to the second question and making sure that we are managing the legislative budget request process, I believe that data-driven requests that allow us to tie our needs back to our SUS 30 priorities will help make sure that those the things that we think are worth investing in are communicated to our leaders in a way that they've already understood to be of value. And I do see that we have, I think we have good opportunity to have more investment in FAMU. I've looked at the numbers and I've asked a few questions, and I do see where other schools seem to be more skilled, I would say, at making sure that however the requests and requirements are written, they're able to best optimize the outcome for dollars being assigned to them. I would like for us to have a seat at the table when some of those decisions are being made about how we will be allocating the money, not after when I'm going to request it. I want to be able to make sure that we're able to influence the metrics in a way that doesn't penalize or perhaps lessen what FAMU would be able to extract out of the process in a way that is disparate. And so I would love to take a deeper dive into some of the performance metrics to see where we have seen maybe historical trends that, if adjusted, or if we were able to maybe have a presidential factor that could be considered instead, we could get better outcomes financially from the performance-based funding approach. And then again, as I started, I do think tying our requests to things that we know are of value to the state, things that will drive jobs, things that are going to help us improve the workforce, things that are going to get students out of school faster and cheaper and limit the amount of debt. I think to the extent that we can define our needs consistent with those priorities for the SUS and for our Board of Governors, we'll see more success.
Thank you. We are a little bit past time. I do see two more hands though, so I'd like to call Trustee Reed, Trustee White, and then we will wrap up.
Thank you, Chair Harper. Just one more quick question. You know, we're a very unique institution and very much mission driven, but it is so important when we talk about the family that, you know, we bring everyone along on the overall journey. So how do you plan to build and strengthen relationships with local community, alumni, and other stakeholders? And what do you see as the university's role in the broader community, and how would you facilitate that?
I see the university's role in the broader community as one of the pillars. I mean, by definition, are a community anchor institution. You are anchoring the community surrounding this university. And so the community will thrive or will struggle based on FAMU's success. So like I mentioned earlier, partnering with entrepreneurs that are servicing the communities around us is a great way for us to make sure that we're working within this ecosystem to build an economy that thrives in a way that I think represents the excellence and the opportunity that FAMU is capable of delivering on. We also should be partnering with our schools, because I talked to someone who went to FAMU High, and I think they said everybody in their class who graduated from FAMU High came to FAMU, and they were the one exception. So I'd like to keep that trend up. Maybe we don't have one exception, maybe it's 100%. So I do think that doubling down and embracing our community partners, because they are also ambassadors of our brand. I mentioned earlier, I think the campus should feel open to them. It should feel like a place they would like to congregate and come to learn and exchange thought and be a part of the energy and excellence in this environment. So I do feel like I have some work to do there, because the family is strong, as you noted, and it's especially strong here in the city of Tallahassee. And so continuing to identify opportunities, as noted, to work with entrepreneurs, to work with our churches, to see where we have interests in common. That's something I've done across the span of my career, is collaboration. One of the things that I believe I've done a phenomenal job at my company is making sure that when we're working with the community, we're not just telling them, here's what's important to FAMU, you go do it and engage with us. We're actually going to the community and finding out what needs does our community have, that we as an institution with tremendous resources and intellect and wealth can help uplift. So how can we solve problems for other community institutions, such as our churches, our daycares and our schools, our businesses, in our community centers. So I would love to engage with the broader community to see what's our remit there, and how do we bring FAMU's excellence and extend FAMU's excellence even further by partnering with them to solve their problems, to solve problems that are facing the general community.
Thank you. Trustee White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. My last question is, as we look into the future of higher ed and how students will continue to matriculate through FAMU and through other institutions, artificial intelligence has really started to disrupt not only the business community, but also just how we do and go about business as a whole, with the efficiency that it brings to a lot of processes. What is your vision for being able to not just implement and teach artificial intelligence with the programs that we have at Florida A&M, but also to bring those technologies to how we process and just go about business as an administration? Thank you.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because it's a challenge that we're all trying to figure out. At its core, even though I'm a technology forward person, even I am a little hesitant about being strategic in how we embrace artificial intelligence and move it forward. So I believe that FAMU's already taken a nice, productive step forward, and that is in recognizing the opportunity and the risk and creating the work group that I think the provost is managing to center our thoughts and planning and strategies. I think that effort will help drive and define where we as a university can see the greatest value, and as we plan along with other universities, how we manage risk. That also said, there are many places where AI is being used already today in a way that I think can be immediately productive, and it's been tested enough to be safe. And one of those is in managing our advising services for our students. Utilizing AI might help us better support the feedback that our advisors are able to receive, and help them better translate that feedback into meaningful and productive follow-up with their student, so that we can see more efficient alignment between the advising and counseling services that our students are getting, because it's being fueled by really intense data-driven factors that really, I think help elucidate things that it would take our advisors weeks or months to figure out on their own. So I think that's one area. And the University of Florida's Lastinger Center is taking a look at utilizing AI for advising services already. The other area where I think we could see some immediate value is utilizing AI as we look to expand our excellence in delivery of our customer service for our students. AI might be helpful to us as a tool to better support financial aid processes, to better support some of the housing analysis, to better support some of the scheduling systems that we're utilizing to help our students plan their coursework. So I do think there are some areas where we could probably be fast followers of adoption of AI and continue to take a strategic look at planning beyond those areas as well.
Ms. Johnson, how would you rate the FAMU student on a scale of 1 to 5?
How would I rate the FAMU student?
Yeah.
Oh, and what, 10, 5s? What did you like? When you say rate, I'm not sure in what
In
context.
any context that you
Oh.
define it.
Well, I would have to say 5, because I'm looking at the admissions criteria, and I'm looking at the fact that FAMU students are competitive. I mean, that we're getting students who are coming to us from the tops of their classes, or people who are used to working through a rigorous curriculum. We also are getting students that I think are engaging. And so I would rather take somebody who's hardworking every day than somebody who necessarily got the 1600 on the SAT. I'm seeing the students I've encountered are very engaging, and I would hope that they're representative of the students across the student body population. I think that the students, just like the faculty, are here because they have a passion for FAMU. And I think the energy that passion brings is part of the reason that it's easy to sell the brand. And I would love an opportunity to get to meet more of the students and find that my rating was right on point.
Thank you. So you may now make your closing statement, should you choose.
Thank you. I actually would like to thank you all for your patience. I'd like to thank you all for your trust and for the time you've offered me here today. I understand that this is an amazing legacy. I know that in coming to this position, if I were selected to be the 13th president of FAMU, I'm standing in big shoes for the presidents, but more importantly, I'm standing on a tremendous legacy. And the priority is to make sure that we protect and extend that legacy and grow in excellence. I think we have the opportunity to do that. I think that we have some opportunities and challenges in front of us, but with a leader who's able to navigate across multiple sectors, across parties, across industries. I think we're going to be able to position FAMU to thrive. And I'm excited about the opportunity. So thank you, Board of Trustees, for your time today.
Thank you for your engagement today and for being here. There's a full day of activities to meet with various constituencies. For those in the audience and online, the schedule can be found at the Presidential Search website. We also have a feedback form that we invite the community to complete for each finalist. In addition, the Board of Trustees will meet on Friday, May 16th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to take up action items, including deliberations and voting on the president-elect. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.